We got Tom, who's about to come on and just rock your world, teaching you about trademarks, protecting your brand, and really being your GPS in business. So definitely stick around. Before we dive into that, I want to say thank you for being here, for being on the journey, taking one step at a time. Sometimes life is super great, things are going your way. Sometimes there's more difficult, challenging moments. How do you show up in those moments? How do you respond? And I think these are beautiful times to show up as leaders and really contribute to the people around us, expand, and keep moving forward into our GPS. Thank you so much for being here. Next up is our iTunes review of the week, and this week it is by Swartz B22, who says, "Win. Chris inspires by encouraging everyone to become the greatest possible self so you can become all you were created to be." B Swartz22, thank you so much for that review. If you want a chance to get shouted out on a future 12-hour live stream, go to beyourgps.com/iTunes or search Greatest Possible Self on the Apple Podcast Store. Leave us a review. Let us know what you love, what you want to see more of, and how we can improve the show for you. Thank you in advance for doing that. And stay tuned, because this is going to be a powerful interview with Tom. Grab a piece of paper, grab a pen, be ready to take notes. This could be the thing that literally saves your butt down the line and protects your assets, protects your wealth, protects your business, and the thing that you've put so much time and energy into. So definitely stick around all the way through to the end, because one idea, one strategy, one piece of information really has the power to change everything for you. Let's introduce Tom, and we'll bring him on. Tom is a California business attorney in his 17th year of practice. Tom was burnt out working at law firms where he represented institutional clients and insurance companies, so he went solo in 2017. He only represents small business owners and entrepreneurs, helping them set up their business properly. He counsels businesses on corporate structure, contracts, risk management, and intellectual property. Trademark law has become Tom's specialty, and he is building a course to enable people to file their own applications. That's just the tip of the iceberg with this epic human being. We're going to get so much value from this. Tom, are you ready to rock the house, brother?
I can't wait. Let's do this.
Let's do it, man. We're live and becoming your greatest possible self. Tom, thank you for being here. We're going to dive right into the theme of today, which is using crises to fuel creation. What does that mean for you, man?
I was just having this conversation with a couple of my clients yesterday, so this is very timely. I got multiple clients who are going through hard times right now. I mean, most of us are. The economy is contracting. Things are shriveling up. People are having hoard and scarcity mentality, and everyone's afraid to spend any kind of money. And I think this is the perfect time to invest in yourself, because this demonstrates that you can't rely on others for your own continued livelihood. You can only rely on yourself. No job is guaranteed. That was true when I was working in law firms as well. And so what I was counseling my clients about is that, okay, you're struggling right now, and the landscape that you're used to, the success that you've had up until now, is no longer in existence. Right. So you need to adapt and you need to evolve. And the people who fail to evolve and adapt as circumstances change, because life is always changing. But if you stay rigid and brittle, you're going to break, you're going to die, you're not going to survive. So you always have to be able to adapt as society and circumstances change.
Powerful. Dude, I'm loving it. I'm loving it. Just like coming out of the gate swinging, dude. This is great. So Tom, tell us a little bit more about how you're serving your clients with trademark law as a business attorney. I mentioned a little bit about it in your intro, but just in your own words, what do you stand for, man?
Well, I'm an entrepreneur myself. I'm a business owner myself. And so I feel a kinship. I connect with other business owners. I just like working with people who control their own destiny and are as unemployable as I am. People who are entrepreneurs, they're mavericks. They don't follow the rules. Well, hopefully they follow the laws, but they don't like being constrained with employment. They like being able to chase their own dreams. And so I like supporting them on their journey. And so what I do is I get businesses set up. Like I form people's corporations or their LLCs, and to make sure they're set up the right way. I look at the whole picture. I take a holistic view of what's going on with your business and what are your objectives, your challenges, your market. And then I work directly with my clients to craft custom solutions for them. So it might be fortifying their contract. It might be looking at their insurance coverage. It might be helping them out if there's a dispute or if there's litigation or if someone owes them money. But the area that I'm really putting my emphasis in lately, this last year, has been trademark, where I'm helping businesses achieve nationwide exclusivity for their branding. That's ultimately what Trademark is.
Wow. Dude, I love it. We're going to dive into that and that nationwide exclusivity, why business owners like really get to take action on this. They need to be moving on this because there's so much opportunity there. Before we dive into that though, I just want to talk about your journey over these last 17 years, man. Why did you get started in law? What's it been like for you, man?
Well, in college and in high school, I was a kitchen manager. So, I was flipping steaks and making pasta and running a line in a variety of kitchens. And I found it challenging and fun, and it was high energy. It was good for my personality, but it wasn't a whole lot of meaning in that work. And it wasn't super lucrative either. And so I chose law school instead of culinary school because I wanted something challenging and I wanted to be able to make an impact. And I wanted to be able, frankly, to have a comfortable living that wasn't a hand-to-mouth existence.
Yep.
So that's why I chose to go into law school. Also, I got perhaps a flair for the dramatic. I used to want to be an actor. I like public speaking. I like, being up on stage. And so this seemed to be a good medium for that as well. So that's why I chose law school.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. And then over the journey, like what was the transition into going into business for yourself?
So straight out of law school, I graduated from USD here in San Diego into a tough economy. It was 2003. There weren't a whole lot of jobs out there. And when I was a student, I had an unrealistic and naive perspective on what was waiting for me once I passed the bar.
Yeah.
And I thought there'd be a 6-figure job waiting for me and I get all this great experience and make great money right out of the gate. And that wasn't the case at all. I got humbled really fast.
Yeah.
So I did pass the bar the first try, which was great, but I found myself making $20 an hour as an associate at a law firm.
Oh my gosh.
So I was making about double what I was making as a kitchen manager. So it was a hard go for a while there, and I got laid off as a second-year lawyer. So I hung a shingle and went out as a solo for about a year, and I managed to feed myself. So I'm very proud of that. As a second-year lawyer, barely knowing where the courthouse was, I managed to bring in enough clients and get some experience that I was able to pay my bills, pay my rent, and exist.
Mm-hmm.
So then I felt like I owed it to myself to work in law firms. I wanted some collegiality. I wanted to build a 401k. I wanted colleagues. I wanted that experience. So I worked in different law firms and learned how to practice law and how not to practice law, how to treat people and how not to treat people. I worked in a trust and probate litigation firm for 4 months, and I hated it with a passion. It was family members suing family members over estates.
Ugh.
Couldn't do it. Worked in a firm where we did insurance coverage and construction defect litigation. Wasn't a huge fan of that. Construction defect is really just a way for homeowners to extort builders because then they take the money and they go and buy TVs with it and they don't fix the houses.
Wow.
Insurance coverage is a huge thing to learn, though. It's not very sexy, but if you can learn how to compel an insurance company to stop screwing around and actually pay a claim, it's a pretty valuable arrow in my quiver. So that's something that becomes useful. I found that my specialty was in business disputes. That's where I was strongest. So when there's a contract, there's a business, and something's gone wrong, those cases tended to come to my desk, and that's where I shone. And so that was how I started carving out a specialty for myself.
Dude.
And then around 2017, I just felt a pull that the time was right for me to go out on my own. I felt like I was selling myself short by working in a firm, and I just saw way better upside on my own.
Wow. And then getting into trademarks, what was the thing that prompted that, man?
I filed my own first. Yeah. So I have got another business. So when I say I'm an entrepreneur, it's not just from running a law office. I actually have a videography business called Eternal Roots. The core of that business is I interview senior citizens, I record their life story, I make a custom documentary and book about their life. That's led to me doing memorial videos and taking me in different directions that I never foresaw when I began. But a few years ago, I decided to trademark the name Eternal Roots. So I just educated myself on the process, watched videos, read articles, filed my own, and massively screwed it up. As I find which happens with my clients sometimes when they file their own. And so I had to go in there and fix it and figure out what I did wrong. What did I not give them that they needed? And I just had to learn by doing. And fortunately, I just committed malpractice to myself. And then I got it through. It got passed and I got my certificate. I'm looking at it right now. And I found that, it felt pretty good. No one else in the United States of America in the videography context can call themselves Eternal Roots. That felt kind of cool.
Yeah.
I continued educating myself on that. And then friends of mine started asking me questions. And so I started helping them out for free. And when I got myself to a point where I felt like I could competently help someone and take a fee, I started doing that. And then the more I did it, the more I found I really enjoyed this practice area. And, there's no turn on greater than getting a certificate in the mail for one of my clients. Now I get to mail this to my client. And that's a pretty cool feeling. Dang. So it just became more and more of an emphasis of my practice. And I've got about 20 applications pending before the USPTO right now.
Wow. Dude. Okay. So this is gold. And I know that there's business owners out there who are asking themselves like, okay, I'm just wanting to grow my business. I'm wanting to impact more people, serve more people, generate more revenue. Why should trademarking my business be on my radar?
It should be on your radar at the outset, at the very, very beginning. And I don't want to use scare tactics because you can use trademark as a sword and as a shield. Okay. But you don't want to be into your business and you've invested tens of thousands of dollars in your infrastructure and your marketing and your branding, only to find out that someone else came before you and has the same or similar name and a same or similar classification. And then you're getting hit with a cease and desist letter. Or even worse, you're getting hit with an infringement lawsuit. And now you have to defend that. But even if you can make that dispute go away, now you're having to start all over on your branding. And having to start over on your branding, you're starting over on your business because people associate you through your branding. And if you're having a new name, people don't know who you are. And now you're having to start all over. So that's why you need to care about trademark. So it's a way of ensuring that you and only you has the name of your business or the name of your product or your service or even your logo.
Yeah. Wow. So it's really like it's you said sword and shield. I would say the major thing though is like protection. It's like to prevent against like the downside of someone else wanting to come in and use that name and like try to rip you off or whatever might happen with that.
Right. So if you have the trademark, now you've got a shield. If someone's going to come along and claim you're infringing on them and you've got the mark, now the courts will have a judicial presumption of the validity of your trademark. So if you're in litigation, you're in a position of strength by having that piece of paper. Wow. But you can also use it as a sword. So if you've got your own trademark and you find someone else out there using a same or similar mark in a same or similar class as you, now I'm going to be writing a cease and desist letter on your behalf, telling that person to knock it off. So it's a sword and a shield.
Wow. I think one thing I want to educate people on is the extent that it can be used, and then like what is it useful for, and when do trademarks like not really apply if something falls outside of the scope of how you can use it?
Okay, that's a wonderful question. So this comes to me all the time, and sometimes I have to be the bearer of bad news, and that's my job sometimes. So you generally can only trademark names that are distinctive. So, Eternal Roots, that's a distinctive name. If my name was, videographer of the elderly, that's descriptive. It's generic. You cannot get trademarks for names that are generic or descriptive. They have to be distinctive. Right. And so when I give examples like Yahoo, Amazon, Nike, Google, those are distinctive names that get a real high degree of protection. And so I've had applications go through where they're a little bit borderline, and some have gotten through and some haven't. And so so when people come to me and they're asking me to run a name through the trademark database, and sometimes I'll get 0 hits, which is what you want. Right. But I'll tell them, look, I think your name is totally descriptive or it's generic. I don't think it's going to get through. I won't even take your money to file it. I think you need to go back to the drawing board and find a bit more of a distinctive name.
Wow. That's good distinction. So it's like descriptive is just talking about it. It's using things like, business coach, or like maybe, I don't know if the number one business coach, would that be too descriptive, or do you think that would be unique?
I think that'd be generic. It'd be deemed generic.
Yeah.
So let's say you had a very distinctive name with business coach. So let's say okay, you got angel wings behind you.
Yes.
And so you say you call yourself Angel Wings Coaching. I haven't looked it up, but it sounds distinctive enough to me. Yeah. However, the word coaching itself is generic and descriptive. Right. So what you do is I'd apply for the whole name, and then I would have to disclaim coaching. So you can't claim exclusive rights to coaching, but for Angel Wing, you could. That's an example of how that might work.
Wow. Do people try to do this on their own and submit do this on their own, or tell me about that process? If someone were to say, I'm just going to go Google this. I love you, Tom. You're a great guy. You've inspired me to go do this. Do they do it on their own?
Well, so on the one hand, I got mixed emotions about that. I commend you for perceiving the need to do it. Yeah. And wanting to protect yourself. I commend you for that. So anyone wanting a trademark, I'm not going to eat your lunch for that. Now, just going off and doing it on your own, I'd say to exercise some caution. People get trademarks through on their own all the time. There's nothing wrong with that in general, but because you're not trained as a lawyer and you're not trained in this specific process, you're most likely to get tripped up. I got tripped up, and I'm a lawyer. So my first one got messed up. I had to go back and do extra work and fix it. I got it through. But I've had people hire me where they tried to do it themselves, and they got denied. And then I got to the point where it's like a knot. And I had to come in and untie the knot and unravel and clean it up so I could get the apps through. It ended up costing this person double what it would have otherwise and took twice as long. So for people wanting to do it themselves, it's possible. I'm not mad at you if you want to do it yourself and save a buck. But having said that, consider what's your zone of genius in your business. So you have a business and you're an expert in your product or service, your trade or profession. Why are you then going to go out of your zone of genius and be an amateur and take the time to educate yourself on this process when that time could have been better spent doing your trade or profession? So I would advise people you're better off hiring a lawyer to do it for you so you can get it done right. And also the lawyer is going to be the attorney of record. So that person's going to be on the front lines if anything comes down. It's going straight to the lawyer first. Some people can't get it through on their own, and that's commendable. So that's just the caveat I have. Ironically, we'll get into this later. I am building a class where I'm going to teach people how to do it on their own. Yeah. But I feel like I'm going to do it better than any of the resources I'm finding out.
Yeah, and I think that's when people Google stuff, they get Google level results, right? Typically it's if you're not going to an expert, then who knows what unique circumstances and things, distinctions about someone's situation could be completely different that this Google article or whatever it might be, YouTube tutorial could never see. And it's do you want to waste all that time and get a trademark attempt rejected, or do you want to get it right the first time?
Yeah, save yourself time, save yourself money on the application, but also on your time educating yourself. That's time you could have been doing better things for your business. For me, an example I like to use is I'm not a graphic designer. So why am I going to spend hours teaching myself Adobe Illustrator so I can do amateurish work? I'd rather go and pay a designer, do it right, than I can focus on my strength, which is practicing law.
Yeah. Man, I love it. Is there any type of business that trademarking doesn't work for?
Oh, well, generally, no. I mean, it's really anybody who is actually using a mark in commerce, and you can demonstrate through what's called specimens, which are photos, that you are actually using that mark in commerce or that you intend to. And you're the first one to do it, and your name is distinctive, you can get a trademark regardless of your industry. Having said that, there's one industry where it's a little sketchy, and that's the cannabis industry, because it's still federally illegal, which is ridiculous. But because of that, if you are manufacturing actual cannabis or THC products, you cannot get a trademark for the cannabis product itself. If you've got ancillary products for it, you can, but any cannabis products themselves, you cannot get a trademark for.
Wow. So it sounds like there's everyone should get this to protect themselves, to put themselves in an advantageous position. Let's talk about if a consumer is going to choose a company, a customer or client, and they see that trademark symbol, do you think that has any weight on the consumer's mind?
It depends on how savvy the consumer is, and it probably depends on the nature of what it is you're doing. So, if it's a professional service. So, by the way, the trademark designation we're speaking of, let's put this out there, it's Circle R.
Okay.
So the Circle R means you have a registered trademark. It's a federally registered trademark. It means you've got the piece of paper. So for this particular client's product, he can put a Circle R for that now.
Okay.
For everybody else, you can put the superscript TM.
Okay.
And what that means is, I regard this as mine. Don't take it. I'm putting my stake in the ground here. But you don't have to do that, and it's really not enforceable. So it's just a way of putting the public on notice that this is mine. But to answer your question, I don't know that consumers care all that much, but it depends on who the consumer is. Now, if it's maybe if it's a B2B transaction, just like if you have INC or LLC after your business name, having the Circle R designation, I think enhances your credibility and shows, that you're professional, you're established, you're all in with your business, you have your infrastructure in place.
Yep.
So I do think that exists to some extent.
Yeah. And then you mentioned about the Circle R and then the TM. Can you dive into the distinction of that a little bit more? Is the TM, like what point does someone put that on?
Anybody could put TM on their stuff at any time. There's nothing stopping anybody from writing TM.
Okay.
And it's a way of just putting the public on notice that I regard this as mine.
Okay.
But you cannot use the Circle R unless you have the registration. And so if you put Circle R and you're not actually registered, that can actually lead to civil liability for you. Or if you later decide to go and seek a trademark and then the USPTO sees you're telling the public that you're already got the registration, you can actually get denied for that.
Wow.
So when I see people saying Circle R, it's kind of a habit of mine. I trademark stock them. Mm-hmm. I go onto the database and I look them up. And there have been times I've told people, you don't actually have a trademark. You might want to get rid of that Circle R.
Yeah.
Now you do have common law rights. So there's the federal level, but then there's common law. So as soon as you start holding yourself out as using a trademark, you actually have a common law trademark right to that trademark, assuming nobody else is using it. You get no judicial presumptions in your favor, and you have to sue in state court. And state judges are really taxed on their resources, and they really don't understand trademark law. And you have no statutory remedies, no attorney's fees, and so it's really an uphill battle, and that's not a fight I would advise someone to pick.
Wow, dude. This is great stuff, man. Like I've never even thought about all this stuff.
Keep the questions coming, man. I'm ready to go.
This is great. Okay, so we talked about the trademark symbol, the registered symbol, the difference between those and when to use them. I'm curious with the people who you work with. I just want to talk about you personally and how you run the business. Like, what have you seen is important to be able to be a great attorney for your clients, to be able to communicate with them and have them understand concepts? What do you think is important there, man?
I can just speak for myself. And so for me, it's empathy and connection. I mean, that's my superpower as a lawyer.
Yep.
Is I connect with my clients. I see them as human beings. I am a human being. One item of feedback I get from people is that I'm personable. I'm human, and I take a lot of pride in that because I feel like that's not super well reflected in my profession. And so I like to connect with my client and figure out what's your pain point, what's important to you, what are your priorities, where do you want to go with this? Because I'm not going to just go and put someone in a vehicle and charge them a bunch of money and set something up for them if I don't feel like it's really what they need. And in fact, just recently I was on the phone with someone, really sweet lady, and she's talking about setting up an entity. And I'll go file the entity for you. I'll do that happily. I just didn't feel like she was really ready to go file that entity. She wasn't in a position where she's really monetizing this business, and setting up that entity is going to cause more expense coming to her. And I just didn't feel like she was ready. And so I declined to do that for her because I didn't feel like that was in her best interest. So when I'm talking to someone, let's say someone comes to me and they say, hey, Tom, can you do my trademark? Can you set up my entity? Can you do my contract, etc.? That's the need that the client perceives. But I take more of a holistic view of my client's situation. They may or may not need the reason that they're on the phone with me for. They might need other things as well. And maybe certain things need to come first.
Mm.
For example, if you're a sole proprietor and you're coming to me about your contract, the first thing I'm going to say is, well, let's get an entity set up, because what if there's a problem with that contract? There's a lawsuit. Now you're going to be a party to that lawsuit yourself in your individual capacity, and your personal assets are going to be exposed. If we can set up an entity for you first, then I make that entity the party to the contracting party. Now you've got some infrastructure. Now you got some protection, a way to limit your liability. So I take a holistic look at my client situation and see what they need.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And I also hear that you protect that downside, but you're also looking for the upside. You're looking for growth strategies. You're looking for like what is going to work, what's going to help them to achieve the result that they want, and in the way that they're great at, their gifts, their unique skills and abilities, and how to best execute on that vision.
Yeah, I look out into the future. And so my background as a litigation attorney, so for 14 years, all I did was lawsuits. I did nothing else.
Wow.
And I feel like now, as someone who does a lot of transactional work, but I know where the courthouse is. Like, I know how things can play out in the future because I've litigated them. So if someone comes to me with a certain fact pattern or a really bad contract, or they haven't bothered to set up an entity, I can see how these things could play out because I've litigated these things. Or let's say you've got a partnership and you have got no written agreement with your partner. And you guys are in business. Well, when you're not making any money, fine, nothing's really going to happen with that. But when money starts coming in, you better bet there's going to be a problem if you don't have paper between you guys.
Wow.
When people want to pull in different directions, or someone feels like they're working harder than the other, and there's no paper between you, you're looking at a real expensive lawsuit. So I can take whatever's in front of me today and project it out into the future. If you continue with the status quo, this is what could happen because I've been there. So let's not do that, and let's fortify your situation right now. That's where my litigation background melds perfectly with my transactional practice.
Yeah, yeah. And then I want to talk about how running your own business, like what do you think that really helps you do with your clients? Like why does that give you a unique advantage over other attorneys?
Interesting question. I mean, any attorney running a law office is in business. I mean, a law office is a business. I have a separate business as well, so I have a bit more of a holistic perspective. So my videography business is an LLC. My law corporation is an S corp, and so I run two different kinds of businesses. So one thing I tell people is the situations that I'm coaching you through, either I've been through it with other clients or I've been through it myself as an entrepreneur. And so, when people are on the phone with me, just yesterday, I was on the phone with two different clients who are going through hard times. And I've been through those hard times myself. Like I've been through these struggles, new jobs aren't coming in or clients aren't paying their bills. I get it. I've been there. I've been there too. So it helps me empathize with my clients.
Yeah, dude, that's so good. I think we want people who understand our situation, because we're oftentimes, I would imagine, people are seeking solutions when they're in pain, right? When shit hits the fan, so to speak, like when we're trying to figure out like what to do next, it's like, hey, how do we move forward? And it's like oftentimes Google is the solution, being in that desperation of like, hey, how do I get through this? And it's so much better to have like that preparation, number one, beforehand, but number two, also go to someone like yourself who has the experience and a more broader perspective to be able to serve people no matter what their challenge or their situation is.
And that's one thing I do is I identify the pain point. Like, okay, what is the actual stressor that caused you to reach out to me or call me or email me? What is that? And sometimes people, this is just human nature. We can identify the pain point, and sometimes people just get stuck. Maybe it's fear, maybe it's overwhelm, life getting in the way, or maybe it's monetary. I get it. I'm human. But then I explained to them, okay, so you're in this situation. Here's your pain point. How painful is this going to be if you maintain the status quo? So if you continue on this path that you're on, whatever pain you're experiencing now, what's that pain going to be 6 months or a year down the road? And so by hiring a lawyer to help address that pain point now, it reduces your stress. And whatever you spend on the lawyer, it could save you 10 times that down the road. So one thing I tell people is really, by using me early on, I'm free. I pay for myself over time.
Yeah, I love it. I love it, dude. That's so good. I want to talk about if Burn It Up coaching was to get a trademark today, like what is that process like? Like, what do you need from your clients to be able to submit that?
So the first thing I would do, so let's say you emailed me and say, hey, Tom, I want to trademark Burn It Up coaching.
Right.
The first thing I'll do is I'll inquire to you, okay, well, what's the classification? Like, what's the nature of your business? Okay. Yours, I already know who you are and what you do. So I would know that, but that'd be otherwise the first question I would ask is what's the nature of your business? Then I go into the trademark database. It's called TESS, TESS, Trademark Electronic Search System. It's a public database run by the USPTO. It's free. Anybody could use it. You can go on it right now.
Okay.
And then you type in the word, you type in the phrase, and you just see if it's available. So I would type in Burn It Up coaching, and then just see what we would get. And I'm not on the clock. You haven't hired me. I haven't taken a dime from you because I don't want to take your money and get hired by you, and then you're expecting a trademark, and then I go into research and I find this thing's DOA. I don't even want to be in that situation. So what I do is this is just part of my service. I just do the search at the outset. I consider it part of the initial consultation. So I look and see if the name's available. Let's say we get 0 hits. That's great. There's no one else calling themselves exactly that name. But you don't just get trademarks for that precise name. I mean, you can get blocked if someone has a similar name. So then I'd play around with variations. Maybe I'd say Burn It Up and take coaching out and see what we find. Or burn coaching and see what we find. But even that's not always super exhaustive. And there could be variations that you don't foresee. So if I find that it's not viable, I'm going to tell you, I don't think it's viable. You can continue using that name. Or if I find there's a conflict, I might tell you, hey, by the way, this other guy's using that name. You might want to rethink yours. Let's say your name's viable. So at that point, I would send out an intake form. So I got a 1-page PDF that you fill out that has all the information I need. You just fill it out, and then that contains everything I need. I have to send out a fee agreement. I'm required by the state bar to do a written fee agreement. And then once the fee enters my account, I'm ready to go because I pay the filing fee on your behalf. The next thing I will do is I will go to your website. So you're a service. Burn It Up coaching is a service.
Right.
So the specimen I would have to submit would be promotional or advertising material. If you have got a good or a product, it's the product itself. Photos of the product label, the display, the packaging. That's what you need for goods. For services, it's your advertising material. So for you, I would probably just go to your website and I'd find where it says Burn It Up coaching along with some kind of description, textual description of what you do. I screenshot that with my computer. And then I go in and I crop it, clean it up, make it as concise as I can, get all my tabs out of there. And then I convert it to a JPEG. And then I go onto the USPTO website and I physically fill out the application. I submit the specimens. I pay the filing fee. I get the receipt. I then forward the receipt to you and I say, congratulations, Mr. Trademark applicant. We'll talk in 3 months because that's how long it's going to take for the USPTO to act on your application. So in 3 months, we'll find out if it's a green light or a red light. And if it's a green light, then we know it's going to take about 3 months more for the process to go through the publication phase that's got to go through, and then that piece of paper is going to arrive in the mail. You're good. Sometimes you get denials, and those denials are called office actions. Sometimes the office action is curable. Sometimes I can just go on there and check a box and fix it real easy, no charge. Sometimes we got to get to work, and that's where I do it hourly. And then if we can cure the office action, you'll get the piece of paper. And if we can't cure it, then we take our ball and go home. So that's generally how the process works. And then you got to renew your trademark 5 years later. Then 5 years after that, you have to renew it again. And then every 10 years thereafter.
Wow. Tell me what happens if someone lets their trademark expire?
It's deemed abandoned. And so you no longer have a trademark.
Is it just as easy to go say 5 months after that 5-year period and say, hey, I want to renew this, and you can renew it?
Well, no, you can't do it. You have to, there's like a certain window of time.
Wow.
So if 5 years out, there's like a 1-year window where you can submit your renewal. It's called a declaration of use.
Okay.
So you have to submit a verification. It's kind of like a reapplication with a new specimen. You got to pay $125 filing fee and demonstrate you're still using it.
Wow.
So yeah, you can't do it 5 months after you got to wait the 5 years, but you get a 1-year window.
Wow.
And if you drop the ball and you're a little late, you can file it late. You just got to jump through additional hoops and additional fees. But if it's actually abandoned, the USPTO will actually deem it abandoned and send you a notice of abandonment. Yeah. And you got to start all over and reapply.
Yeah. So I know trademarking is something that's important for protecting that brand, longevity of it. Is there anything else that you typically recommend for businesses, the good strategies to help them protect their business or keep growing their business?
Well, I could talk about this all day long. So I've given a lot of talks on how to limit your liability in business. And having a trademark can limit your liability in the sense that you're less likely to have someone come after you and claim infringement if you already have your own registration. But there are certain pillars of limited liability I want all business owners to know about. And so one of them is entity formation. Okay. If you are doing business as a corporation or an LLC, the general rule is you are not liable personally for the obligations of the corporation. So if there's a breach of contract claim, the proper party to that lawsuit is the entity, not you. There are exceptions to the limited liability rule called alter ego, where if you're not adhering to corporate formalities and you're not properly maintaining your corporation, you don't have separate accounting, you're using your corporation as your personal piggy bank, you're paying personal expenses out of it, you're not doing your annual filings, your annual meetings, you're not running your corporation like a corporation, the court can pierce the corporate veil and disregard the corporate existence and hold you liable anyway. So it's important that you do it right if you're going to do it at all, which is why I tell people don't use LegalZoom, don't use your tax guy, don't do it yourself, hire a lawyer, because anybody can file articles of incorporation and create the entity. It's what you do next that matters. So that's a caveat I have there. So in general, having the entity gives you limited liability. Another area to protect yourself is through strong contract drafting. So you're a coach. Let's use you as an example. Okay. Do you have a corporation or an LLC set up, by the way?
Yes.
Okay, good man. So in your service agreement for your coaching, you make sure it's crystal clear. Are you a corp or an LLC?
Corp.
Okay. So, and what's the name of your corp?
Burn It Up Coaching Inc.
Okay, there you go. So you make sure that Burn It Up Coaching Inc. is the name of the contracting party, not Chris Burns. Right. You put the name of your corporation in the top, in the recitals, the parties to the contract, and at the bottom on the signature block, it's going to say Burn It Up Coaching Inc. In the signature block, Chris Burns, CEO. Right. You're signing on behalf of the corporation. But there's lots of things you can do in your contract to protect yourself. And I've worked with a lot of people in the coaching space, so I'm just going to use you as an example here. Sure. The number one thing I do is I'm crystal clear on the scope of services, your scope of work. Here's where I would want to be very clear on what you do, the services that you do. Yeah. It's good to help manage your clients' expectations. Yeah. Because you don't want them saying, well, hey, Chris, where are my books? My taxes are due. Why haven't you done my taxes? I'm not your tax guy. If you're crystal clear on what you're doing, the client is going to manage their expectations, and there's going to be less likely that there's going to be a dispute. Or if the client comes to you and says, Chris, why don't you do my taxes? Look at your contract. That's not in my scope of work. Yep. But also, there could be some gray area about what you do and what you don't do. And so if there's certain things that you don't want to touch, then you disclaim that. I really like using exclusions from the scope of work. Burn It Up Coaching Inc. is not being engaged to perform the following, and then just put it out there. Because you don't want someone suing you for failing to do X when you never agreed to do X. Right. And so if you have in your contract that you explicitly said, I'm not doing X, then they've got no case against you. So that's a way of helping you out. There's another thing that's really important is to be crystal clear on payment terms. Yep. Is it due up front? Is it spread out over time? Yep. What's your refund policy? When is it due? Under what conditions might you excuse late performance? Things like that. Another way to manage client expectations, but also make sure that you get paid and that you're not working for free. And if it's in your contract, you're in a stronger position. So let's just say, hey, my service costs $4,000, but you don't say anything about when it's due. Now you're going to have some problems with your client. And then you're going to look less professional as a result. So if you're really clear about your payment terms and your cancellation policy, then that's going to protect you. Another thing is a choice of law. So you're located here in Southern California. So you want to say that this contract is governed by the laws of the state of California. You'd want a venue clause. Any litigation arising out of or relating to this agreement shall be venued in Orange County, California. Right. That way, if there's a lawsuit, it's in your backyard. Right. You're not getting sued in New Jersey.
Yeah.
Or if the person sues you in New Jersey, now you've got grounds to bring a motion to change venue and get it kicked back to your backyard.
Wow.
So those are some examples of things that we could do to protect you. Oh, another one, attorney's fees. So you can put an attorney's fees clause in there. In any litigation arising out of this agreement, the prevailing party shall be entitled to their attorney's fees and costs. Wow. So that way, if you have to hire me to go in and sue somebody on your behalf, right, you're going to recoup your fees on the back end of the case.
Wow.
Because if you don't have a fee clause, you don't get it in California.
Wow. I want to a couple things I want to talk about. First, we'll talk about in the beginning of a business. Some people may be like just startup and they're trying to bootstrap their way and may not see how they can pay for legal advice and attorney. What do you recommend to those people?
This is something that really you don't want to defer this. And I understand sometimes people when they're starting up, funds are really tight. You're just trying to generate some revenue here. But it takes some capital to start a business.
Yep.
I mean, any business you start, it's going to take some capital. Look at network marketing. Yep. It takes money to get started in any network marketing business, for example. So yep. You can't expect to get into business and have zero capital. And so, like, how are you going to be able to service your clients if you don't have any resources? So if someone comes to me and they have some legal needs, but they really don't have the means of paying for it, one thing I can do is I can spread it out over time. So let's say there's a scope of work that's $2,000. I might chop it up into 2 or 3 installments to help the client out. Sure. Otherwise, I might say, see if you can go find some financing, get some startup financing, see if you can get a loan. PayPal's got a program right now where they're giving out loans. I think it's like up to $50K. So if you've got credit, go get some capital so you can actually hit the ground running with your business. That's one thing I would advise someone to do.
It's gold. It's gold, Tom. I wanted to ask, you mentioned like LegalZoom and these kind of services. What's the downfall to using something like that versus talking to someone like you?
Okay, I just wrote a post on this last week, and I'm going to write a blog post on this because I feel strongly about it. Now, it's not because this is competition. There's plenty of people competing. I know other business lawyers, and I think they're wonderful people. Yeah. The problem there is for using an online service is you don't have a lawyer. Or if you do, maybe they have a database of people you can go to, but you really don't have a relationship with that person. You didn't go out and get a referral and vet that person and decide if that person's a fit for you. So this is a company that provides documentary services. They push paper. They're not your lawyer. And in fact, they will have a disclaimer saying, we are not your lawyer. Wow. So if you've got a question and you're not sure if this choice you're making, let's say you're hiring LegalZoom to go form your corporation, LLC might be a better match for you. Or you're hiring LegalZoom to go file your trademark, but your name is totally generic. So now you're lighting money on fire. So if you had an actual lawyer on your side, you have someone you can ask questions of. And that person might steer you in another direction, or at least make sure that you're educated about what you're doing. Yeah. And then also people set up corporations. I touched on this earlier. LegalZoom, assume they get it through correctly. That doesn't always happen. You don't know what to do next. How do you properly maintain your corporation? Yeah. You don't have a lawyer to pick up and ask questions of. And so that's what you're lacking there. And then I've got a client right now where she set up her nonprofit through LegalZoom. LegalZoom totally dropped the ball. Wow. They didn't file her statement of information. They didn't do anything to get the nonprofit exemption form filed with the IRS. There was nothing. They filed the articles of organization or incorporation. Well, anybody can do that. Yeah. So I basically had to come in and start all over. And then she was trying to call LegalZoom to figure out, what did you guys do? Where is this? She was on hold for 45 minutes. So it's like you're calling the cable company. So that's the level of service you're going to get.
Oh my gosh. I want to talk about the like what should people be expecting that they can get advice on from a lawyer and get feedback and guidance on, and what like should they be expecting to pay for?
Interesting. I wear a lot of hats as a lawyer, and as a business lawyer, I do a lot of different things.
Right.
Often, so in general, I try to limit my advice to legal advice, but often, lawyers are called counselors. If you walk into court, the judge is going to call you counsel. But that's what I do. Like I am a business therapist in a sense. I was serving as one yesterday, so I have to empathize with my clients and just listen to tell me what's going on in your business. Yeah. And sometimes I am discussing strategy with them about their business and maybe going this way, going that way. And sometimes that involves legal guidance and sometimes not. Sometimes my clients just kind of need someone to bounce ideas off of or someone to actually kind of be their friend. I mean, I do establish real relationships and friendships with my clients. So that's something that I do. I try to not touch tax. Tax is not my thing. Right. Estate planning is not my thing. Criminal law. So there's trust in estates. Like there's certain things I just rather family law stay out of. Yeah. And I've got a good network of lawyers I know in these other practice areas. Mm-hmm. So if something's coming into an area that's really not my area of expertise, I want you to be in the best hands. And I'd rather send you to a colleague of mine than to have me, you paying for my education. Mm. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I wanted, like, as far as when someone wants to work with you, we talked about Trademark submitting that, but as far as like just general business legal relationship, is there any other things that people should know if they want to contact you and just find out if you're a great fit for them and their situation?
Well, absolutely. I mean, when I talk to people on the phone, when I'm talking to a prospective client, it's an initial consultation. I don't charge for this. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to ascertain who you are and where you are. Right. Do I want to work with you? Because this is a two-way street. Yeah. And I don't feel right about you or I don't like you, I'm going to decline the representation. I'll find a tactful way of saying, right. I'll probably stop to. But so it's mutual. Yeah. The client and the lawyer need to make sure it's a fit going both ways because we're going to be with each other, for the next year or the lifespan of your business. But you want to make sure it's a fit. And then I want to ascertain what is the scope of what you need, and is this within my experience and competency? Maybe I can handle this part, but I'll send this part to somebody else. So I'm trying to ascertain that. And while I'm on the phone, I try to establish some rapport. I try to look at the totality of what you need. And if it's pretty simple, I'll just quote you right there on the phone. If it's a little more complicated, if you need a list of things, what I like to do is I put together a proposal. And so I propose doing the following scope of work, and I have a base cost for each item. And then the more you have me doing, I'll work in a bulk savings for you. So the more you have me do, the less you pay. So that's one thing I like to do. But what I really like to do is I serve as general counsel. So you're a company and you don't foresee exactly what you're going to need, but you want an attorney just on speed dial. Yeah. And so I set it up where I'm general counsel. I'm available for anything you might need, including but not limited to, and I'll list it out. And then you can just call me up or email me, and I'm in your pocket. And you have funds in a trust account, so I can pay myself as I go. So that's called being general counsel. And I have several clients where I have that relationship.
That's awesome. That's awesome, man. Getting back to the trademarks, I just wanted to wrap up on that. Is there anything that we didn't touch that you feel like business owners need to know about trademarking, about the process, or just reasons why they should do it? Anything else you wanted to touch on around that, Tom?
Well, I mean, we just scratched the scratch here. I mean, this is the tip of the iceberg. I can go on about trademarks for hours. But one thing I would tell business owners is have a sense of urgency. Mm-hmm. And when people say, when should I file my trademark? My answer is yesterday. Because you never know who might step in and start using your mark in the interim. And so there's a powerful process here called intent to use. So let's say I want to be Burned Up Coaching, but I got some ducks in a row. I got to get my ducks in a row first. I'm really not in business yet. I'm not doing it yet, but I really want to do that mark. I would tell you, file your trademark application now. And we do something called an intent to use application. So you certify that I'm not using this mark in commerce now, but I intend to. You don't have to submit specimens at that time. So you push your application through, and if you get what's called a notice of allowance, You then have 6 months to submit specimens.
Hmm.
So this is a powerful tool. So let's say you don't want to invest the money in your infrastructure, your website, your marketing, because I'm not sure if this name is going to get through. This happened with a client of mine last year where the name was a little suspect. We did an intent to use application and he got denied. He saved tens of thousands of dollars.
Wow.
So he spent, a few $100 with me and saved himself tens of thousands because he didn't go out and put money into this thing where he would have gotten denied anyway. So that was a powerful tool. But here's another thing, the beauty of it. Let's say you do an intent to use application. You're not using this market commerce yet. You file your application. 6 months goes by. You're still not using it yet. Someone else comes along and starts using it. And then they file.
No.
That person who is using the mark, who files for the trademark, gets denied by you because you're not even using it yet because you filed first. The person who subsequently starts using it, they're after you in time. So you can block people from using it even though you're not using it yet. It's a really powerful tool, intent to use.
Wow. Dude, this is great. And I also wanted to talk about the order of priorities. And every business, I'm sure, is different, but order of priorities for legal structures and precautions to put in place. Do you have a general like, hey, this is good to get first or anything like that? That's
an excellent question. And that's one of the first things I do when I'm looking at the totality of what you need. So I asked you, do you have a corporation set up? The answer was yes.
Yep.
If your answer was no, I'd say, so here's the scope of work. Trademark, copyright, contract, privacy policy for your website, entity formation. In what order do we do these things? I move the entity formation to the first. That's the first thing we do. Get the entity set up because everything else then gets housed under that entity. Your contract's under the name of the entity. Your trademark or your copyright's owned by that entity. So create the entity, the holding company first. That's the first thing you do. And then I'd say get the trademark filed next because that's going to take you 9 months. So then that's the very next thing. Get the trademark done. And then the contract, that's probably the third thing I would put in there.
Good stuff. Good stuff, man. So let's start to wrap it up with final takeaways, either just general business wisdom that you've picked up along the years, driving home trademark stuff. I know we barely just scratched the surface on that, but just anything else you feel our audience should know, man.
If you're in business, I just want to congratulate you. You are, it takes a lot of guts and courage and stamina to go out on your own. And if you're in business, regardless of whether you're working with me, I'm rooting for your success because our economy and our society depends on entrepreneurs to pull through. And so I'm rooting for you if you're in business. That's what I got to say there.
Boom. I love it. Let's tell them how they can take next steps with you, how they can contact with you, get in touch with you, man.
So my website is ladegaardlaw.com.
Okay.
I'll make sure to go into the comment section here and I'll type it in, but you can go to my website. I'll make sure my contact info is in there. I've got a YouTube channel that I put up a few months ago. So if you look up Ladegaard Law on YouTube, I've got a channel on there where I've got little 3-minute digestible videos where I talk about trademark and educate people about that. Also, my website, I've got a blog where I dive deep into a variety of topics, and hopefully you can find some pearls of wisdom there as well.
Gold, man. And if people want to contact you, what's the best way they could do that?
People can hit me. So if people watching this over Facebook, you're always welcome to hit me up over Messenger. I'm not giving legal advice over Messenger, but if you want to establish a connection with me that way, that's great.
Yeah.
You can email me. You can call me. You can hit me up through my contact form on my website.
Cool.
There's a lot of different ways. I don't want to start spelling out my last name here because no one's going to catch that.
I love it. And in the show notes for the podcast, YouTube, people will be able to find that. I put your website in the comments on Facebook. So this is great stuff, man. I really appreciate the work that you're doing, Tom, and the value that you're bringing to business owners and taking that holistic perspective, because that's really what we need. We don't need someone who I think of the CPA example, who just once a year you bring your stuff to, and it's okay, just for the tax. It's you want that preventative type of strategy. You want the year-long, hey, let's make sure you're not in 12 months completely out in freaking right field and screwing yourself. Let's make sure every step of the way is effective and productive.
Okay, that's a great concept that we should end on right there. You asked what's some good business advice? Yeah. Go to a lawyer before you need one.
Yeah.
Just like going to the doctor before you're sick. get your well visits in. So if you go to your lawyer to get set up before there's problems, you're going to have so much less stress and you're going to save so much more money. If you wait until you're in the middle of a dispute and you got a horrible contract and you're exposed, and then you go to a lawyer, it's going to cost you a whole lot more. So go to a lawyer before the problems arise, and you're going to have a much better journey in your business adventure.
Boom. Boom. Business adventure. I love it. Tom, you are a champion, man. Thank you for being here, sharing your wisdom. I know people really get that trademark in place so that they can protect themselves. And thank you so much for sharing this valuable wisdom, man. Appreciate you.
Hey, thanks for having me, and thank you for what you do as well.
Thank you, brother. We'll see you soon.
All right.